Hey everyone. So in the last video, we went through a basic bass sound, including some of the foundational theoretical qualities of synthesis. So in this video, I want to make this also pretty basic, and then we're going to be stepping it up to more and more advanced things as we go through. So how these videos will essentially work is that you'll see me build a patch and I'll talk you through it. Then afterwards, I will just take the patch and do something crazy with it, just so you can see how much we push it further, to get you a little bit excited. But also these patches I'll save as presets and you can then access them on my Patreon. Here we are, Serum. From last time I mentioned that these are your basic components. These are your sound sources: oscillator A, B, noise, and sub, okay? Now we spoke last time about filter. So we're going to take that concept again and use it. And last time we spoke about effects, the effects page. We're going to use that as well. So this is going to be a little bit more advanced than the last video. So go back to the first one if you need to take it step by step. Now this video, so we're going to create a pluck sound. A pluck sound is something that has a striking quality to it. So it's like a bang, right? Fast, sharp attack in the beginning of the sound, and then a quick fall in the release, in the sustain to the release. Now it's similar to like a guitar plucking a string, or a pizzicato on a violin, or in the EDM and electronic music production world, pop music and a lot of electronic music. Foundation of how this sound is constructed. We have normally a saw wave. It can be also sine waves, but those are the common ones. And we have to affect the sound, because if we don't affect the sound, it's just going to be like this. And you press a note, it turns on, and then you let go of the note, turns off. What we have to do is control the sound so that we can get the shape of that pluck, of the bang, you know, bang, that sort of thing. We can use something called an envelope for that. So in this video, we will use a oscillator, we will use an envelope to control the sound, we will use a filter to control the sound even further, and then we will simply use some effects to make it sound a little bit better. Once that's done, I'll take it through some more advanced fun stuff. Okay, so let's, for this case, use a saw wave. Now a saw wave is far more complex and brighter than a sine wave. A sine wave is pure, it's one harmonic. A saw wave is a cascade of basically every possible harmonic note that cascades from the note that you play up the harmonic series. So if you look up the harmonic series, you'll see what I'm talking about, where there's your fundamental, then your next harmonic, then your next harmonic, and it keeps going up and up and up and up. It's basically a big chord in the one note. We have our saw wave. Let's start with that. Now we have our envelope. Now in Serum, envelope 1 controls your entire sound. It's like massive as well, where you have an envelope that controls the entire sound. Now, what do I mean by that? If we reduce this, you're going to get that sound, which is actually kind of almost there at what we need. So that's great. Envelope 2 doesn't control the whole entire thing. It's empty until you use it on something. Now, the great thing about an envelope is that you can send these devices, these controllers to any element of the plugin. So you could control the level, you could control the wavetable position, you could control the pitch using envelopes. That's where the quality of sound construction and synthesis is very interesting. Next. So a little bit about what we're doing here in an envelope. Now an envelope is normally constructed of these parameters: attack, decay, sustain, and release. Okay? Now picture this. Attack is how fast the sound gets to its maximum volume. So if we have a slow attack, it's going to look like this. It's going to take 4 seconds to get to the maximum volume. There we are. Okay? Or if we are just at 0, it's immediately at maximum volume. Great. Now, decay is actually speed and sustain is volume. Okay, there's a distinction between the two of those. Attack is also speed, decay is speed, sustain is volume. So with that, let's have a little bit of attack. This is just to demonstrate what an ADSR is, an envelope. Now, if we were to bring down the sustain, we then have control over the decay. That may sound a little bit strange at first, but bear with me. So decay is the speed of which it gets you to the sustain volume. The sustain volume, consider this like the destination volume of your sound. Okay? So say we are going with this attack. We got nearly 500 milliseconds of it going from silence up to our maximum volume. So, right? And then immediately after, we have 650 milliseconds to get us down to this decibel, this volume. So if I were to have it here, then it's going to stay at that volume, whatever volume you choose. So if you just put this to nothing, so it's no volume, it's going to go attack up to the top, and then it's going to go down to silence, depending on the decay time. Right, so we have a lot of customization there for shaping our sound. So a pluck sound, let's think of it like this. A pluck sound will have a immediate loud part. So that's our attack. So that's our transient. You have a bang. So that is not going to look like this. That's too slow. We need our attack to be instantaneous. So I'm going to put it on 0. 0 attack. Now, the shape of a pluck sound, if you were to play something, I mean, I've got this behind me. If you could see. A bit hard to hear, but the cello string, you can hear that there is immediate bang, and then it's so funny to visualize and to audibly show you, but then it will come down in volume. So it's going to be a pretty quick reduction of sound. So kind of like this. Now we may want a little bit of volume, or we may not. So in this case, maybe we don't. And then depending on the speed of this decay, it depends on how fast it gets to silence. So depending on the type of sound we want to make, these parameters will change. Now, one parameter I haven't shown you about is release. Release is simply how much volume is played after you release your hand off the note. So because it goes to silence already, you wouldn't hear the release in effect. But if we have the sustain up a little bit like this, when we let go of the note, it's going to take 15 milliseconds to get us back to silence. So if I increase this to 700 milliseconds, as soon as I let go of the note, right, it took 700 milliseconds to get us to silence. And it visualizes that where the blue part of the envelope is. See that? It's right here. As soon as I let go, take a look at it. 700 milliseconds until we get to silence. That's helpful. So if we're constructing pad sounds where it's these beautiful big chords and things, we would normally have a high attack, so a very slow introduction to the sound, so it swells up, and then we would have a moderate sustain, like where we are now, with a moderate decay, so it goes, and then a moderate release as well. So to demonstrate that, we would have something like this. Right. Pretty cool. But we're making a block, so let's make this short attack, short decay, no release, no sustain, and a fast attack. That's the envelope, okay? That's affecting the entire sound. Great. Now we are next going to activate filter. Filter, again, from last time, we're using a low pass filter here. I mentioned from the other video that a low pass filter is, the definition is in its word, low frequencies can pass. There are two different words that describe this filter. There is a low pass filter or a high cut filter, meaning that it cuts the high frequencies and lets the lows pass. There is inverse as well, where it's a high pass filter, so it lets the highs pass and it cuts the lows. Two definitions. We use a filter instead of an EQ because it's a bit faster for us. It allows us to craft things, and we can internally in the synthesizer route speed or envelopes or modifications that change the value of the filter as we're playing it, you know? So we may want the filter to open up and to close as we're playing it, you know? That's why we use filters rather than EQs for this sort of stuff. But EQs are the same basic thing, although we have to do everything manually on an EQ. So we're going to activate a filter. Now this is where it gets a little bit more advanced here in terms of the components of a synthesizer like this. We want to route an envelope, so this shape that we created that's affecting the entire sound, we want to route that to the filter, so that when it gets to its loudest point, the filter is open, more frequencies, and then when it gets to its lowest point, the filter closes. So it becomes less of the high frequencies. So we will route this to cutoff, and we get this sound, which you may recognize in a lot of music. Right, and we can change the value of the cutoff there. It's very cool. Great, so that's a basic component. Already pretty fun. Now let's take this a step further. That is the basic component though of a pluck, and you can control the decay, how quick you want the pluck to sound. I want this to be kind of moderate, so around 280 milliseconds is good for me. Cool, so now we're going to go to the effects section. This effects section, we're going to add a little bit of distortion. Now distortion is just going to give it a little bit of grit. We want a bit of character in our sounds. So drive on the distortion will affect how much amplitude is going into this distortion. So how much it's being slammed, you know? So you can hear it's getting slammed pretty hard there. We want that for more color. Great, so I described in the last video as well, if you watched it, that there are 3 different plugins within this area here that is spatial. We have flanger, which is metallic kind of character, phaser, which is very watery, and then chorus, which is very wide in terms of basic identification of what those are. So for this, we want a little bit of chorus to make things sound a little bit wider, okay? In fact, all of these would work quite well on a pluck, but for this, we will use a chorus. Now, in this, if I were to show you just the sound of what the chorus is, I've put the mix, meaning the entire amount of the effect, on 100%. Which is great, but we're losing frequencies. Why is that? Why is that? But it's essentially because we have a filter in the chorus itself, right here. Right, so that's made things really wide, really nice. But for the sake of this, we want to blend a bit of the original signal and the chorus. Cool, good stuff. Now that's a wider sound. It's got color, it's got interest, it's not dry, and yet it's still got the, it's enough shortness to the sound to be used as a pluck. Now, we're gonna make this a bit more interesting. We're going to add a delay. Now, this is the Serum delay. It's very, very great. If I just play something, classic sort of echo of a delay, right? It just like, it repeats the sound quieter and quieter each time, depending on the rhythmic value that you set here. But what's great about this is it has rhythmic values for the left part of the speaker and the right part of the speaker. So if I change one of these to be eighth notes for the left part of the speaker and quarter notes for the right part of the speaker, we will hear this. So we get this scatter. Oh, I hit my mic, sorry. We will hear eighth notes through the left and quarter notes through the right, which is pretty cool. Now, something else that's really nice about this delay is that there is actually a EQ for the delay inbuilt. Now, what I would do for this is I'll just bring this down a little bit. What this means is that the delay will only have delay frequencies within this area of the frequency spectrum. Right? So that's really nice for us. I will also add a little bit of reverb. We can keep this basically at the default. This is quite nice. Good. And after that, we can even add a compressor. Now this is sort of more in the advanced stuff, but that's okay. What you just saw me do is I can actually rearrange the order of the plugins here. Now the order of plugins are very, very important in any kind of production because the order determines what plugin is going to go through each other, through the chain of plugins. So if you have distortion first, then the sound is going through distortion first, then it's going through into chorus, then it's going through delay, then it's going through compression, and then that compression is going into reverb. But if you were to put reverb before compression, the sound will sound very different because essentially your compression is going to be compressing the reverb first. It's going to be reducing the dynamic range of that reverb. So I want the reverb to be after, but you may want the reverb to be before for a specific sound. Now this reverb has a lot of low end. So I'm going to actually reduce the low cut, which means that there is less low frequencies. It's cutting off, which is nice. Great. That's it. That's your sound. So if I were to, in Cubase here, write something in, and I'll just make it a short loop, and we'll go something like this. Actually, we'll make this maybe 16th notes. Right, so this is like an off-axis pattern that you get something like this, and we'll hear it. I was just messing around with some of the dry wet parameters. I enabled the multi-band mode on the compressor and just messed a little bit with some of the general parameters of like the filter and stuff like that. It's pretty cool, and when you put it into effect, when you start to change those parameters with a sequence like this, you get really interesting results and you get to something very fast. So with a demonstration of this and the previous sound that I created in the last video, let me show you how we can actually affect this. I'm gonna put, this is the advanced part of the video, by the way. I'm gonna put a macro on the filter, which means the more I expand it, the macro, the more it will open the parameter that I've routed it to. I will also route that to, well, okay, so that will just be filter, okay? Then I'll do the next macro to delay and I'll do the next macro to reverb. So this is delay, this is reverb, and maybe even chorus as well. And with the chorus, we can even make the feedback go up a little bit too. And with all of that, it means when you automate it, so I'll just show this in terms of automation. I could repeat this a couple times and enable my read and write. So I've got all my parameters, and then inside my automation, I can go, okay, let's go filter cutoff like this, and then it jumps back. Maybe something like this, maybe like that, and like this. Cool. You know, something like this, maybe to there. Great stuff. There you go. This Pluck patch will be on my Patreon for free download there, and yeah, check it out. If you like the more advanced stuff there, it's just so much fun. I can't resist to just put it into context and make some fun, weird stuff. Yeah, hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much. Bye.